I'll move that. I'll leader.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy President. So today's motion is concerned with medicinal cannabis. It asks government to further consider the legislative framework regulating the access and use of medicinal cannabis in Tasmania. As members are aware, medicinal cannabis has been able to be prescribed in Tasmania since 2017 in accordance with the Controlled Access Scheme, the CAS. The scheme allows patients to access medical cannabis lawfully for treatment under well-established processes for all unproven and unregistered medical products. Under the framework established by the Tasmanian Poisons Act of 1971, medicinal cannabis in the form of cannabinoid is regulated as a restricted substance. Medicinal cannabis in other forms is regulated as a narcotic substance. In each case, approval by the Secretary of the Department of Health is required for patients to access these products. This process supports the safe and responsible use of medical cannabis products through the rigorous assessment of applications, which is informed by evidence and expert clinical advice. This process is required because, unlike other medicines, most medicinal cannabis products have not been assessed by the Therapeutic Goods Administration as safe, efficacious, or sufficient quality to permit inclusion in the Australian Registrar of Therapeutic Goods. Therapeutic goods can be lawfully supplied in Australia through two main pathways. Medical cannabis products that are entered to the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods may be accessed in accordance with the framework established by the Poisons Act and regulations. The Therapeutic Goods Act provides for the standard for the uniform scheduling of medicines and poisons, also known as uniform standards. The uniform standards reflects decisions made by the Secretary of the Australian Government Department of Health about the classification of medicines and poisons into schedules. The scheduling classification sets the level of control on the availability of medicines and poisons in Australia. Tasmanian's poisons legislation adapts the uniform standard and reflects this classification. Medicinal cannabis products that are not entered to the register may be accessed via the Therapeutic Goods Administration's Special Access Scheme, Authorised Prescriber Scheme, or clinical trials. In Tasmania, approval through the Controlled Access Scheme is required, which complements the Therapeutic Goods Administration's Special Access Scheme. The Controlled Access Scheme is a well-established mechanism to support the safe and responsible use of unregistered medicinal cannabis products in Tasmania, which allows Tasmanians with a serious illness which has not responded to conventional therapies access to unregistered medical cannabis products when prescribed by a suitably qualified relevant medical specialist. The CAS is specifically designed to support the safe and appropriate use of unproven medical cannabis products through the rigorous assessment of applications informed by evidence and expert clinical advice. This is the same process applied to all other unproven medicines accessed through the public health system in Tasmania. It is important because the Therapeutic Goods Administration does not vouch for the quality, safety or effectiveness of unapproved products assessed through the Special Access Scheme. To protect patient safety, Tasmania's scheme requires standard, evidence-based treatments to be exhausted before unregistered medicinal cannabis products are trialled. The CAS is not condition specific, and any relevant medical specialist present and practicing in Tasmania may make application to access these unproven medical products for their patients in accordance with the scheme requirements. The CAS is supported by robust processes that are applied to unregistered medicinal cannabis in the same way that it is applied to other costly medicines with limited evidence. Importantly, the Tasmanian government is the only government in Australia to subsidise the cost of highly expensive unregistered medicinal cannabis products and make their potential benefits accessible to all Tasmanians, not just those who can afford to pay. The most any approved Tasmanian patient will pay for an unproven medical cannabis product under the Controlled Access Scheme is the applicable Commonwealth PBS patient co-payment each time the product is dispensed, which is $41 or $6.60 for concessional healthcare patients. As identified in the Senate inquiry, one of the major impediments for patients accessing unproved medicinal cannabis products experienced in other jurisdictions is the cost, which has been reported to be thousands of dollars for some products. Public health advice has consistently been that the safest and most responsible way these products can presently be prescribed is through a specialist referral model. This ensures the management of their condition is optimised with existing proven therapies before resorting to unapproved medical cannabis products. This is not uncommon for highly specialised products such as some cancer medications. The implementation of the Controlled Access Scheme does not change the status of cannabis as an illegal drug in Tasmania when grown without a licence or possessed without having been prescribed by an authorised specialist medical practitioner. As members may know, it is an offence under the Tasmanian Misuse of Drugs Act 2001 for a person to cultivate, possess, use, supply or sell cannabis. The Australian Government's Criminal Code Act of 1995 also makes certain dealings in relation to cannabis unlawful. Of course, any decision regarding offences and prosecutions is a matter for Tasmanian Police and the Director of Public Prosecutions. So since the Controlled Access Scheme was implemented in 2017, approval to access the medicinal cannabis products in a clinically sound way have been granted to Tasmanian patients, demonstrating that the scheme is working as it was intended, striking the right balance between access and safe prescription of unproven and unregistered products for vulnerable Tasmanians. The government is committed to ensuring Tasmanians have access to medicinal cannabis in a sensible, responsible and evidence-based way. We have cleared the path on this issue and the Tasmanian approach has received strong support of stakeholders during the development of the scheme, including the Australian Medical Association, the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners Tasmania and Epilepsy Tasmania, amongst others. The Tasmanian Government will continue to support the judgments of our specialist clinicians and always take advice from public health experts on how we allow access to unproven and unregistered medical products. We will also continue to work collaboratively with the Government and other states and territories to ensure access to these unproven products is safe and consistent with high-quality evidence-based clinical guidelines. There was a question asked about the numbers, and since November 2017 there has been 39 applications under the CAS submitted by a relevant medical specialist for 27 patients, resulting in 17 approvals for 16 patients. One patient approved following re-application when original approval had lapsed. And the answer to the other question? The other question was related to the TGA and the TMAAC approvals processes. So to be clear, the Therapeutical Goods Administration, the TGA, and the Tasmanian Medical Access and Advisory Committee, the TMAC, serve different purposes and approval processes but operate concurrently. The TGA is responsible for scheduling, assessment and registration of medicines in Australia, including approval to import unregistered products through the Special Access Scheme. Individual assessments of patients are not conducted by the TGA when assessing applications. TMAC is responsible for ensuring the quality and cost-effective use of medicines in Tasmania through the Tasmanian hospital system. An individual risk or benefit assessment of applications occurs to ensure experimental use of unregistered medicines is safe and appropriate in the clinical setting and allows for subsidised treatment. This assessment informs the Secretary of the Department of Health's approval. So I thank the member for bringing on his motion, and I'm sympathetic to the reasoning behind the member putting the motion forward and recognise the many challenges faced by Tasmanians suffering deliberating medical conditions. However, the government doesn't support the motion, but rest assured it has been noted.